Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod, and this is Star Wars 7x7. So, I'm reevaluating some of my thoughts about Star Wars and my relationship to it as a fan as part of Anniversary Week this week here on Star Wars 7x7, with the anniversary of the podcast itself happening on Saturday, July 7th. 4 years of daily Star Wars podcasts. Crazy! Anyway, so today I'm looking back at my disagreement with George Lucas over the special editions. And no, don't worry, this is not going to be your typical, the special editions, they're a blight upon the existence of Star Wars or anything like that. No, it's not really that simple for me. First of all, there's a lot to recommend about it in the sense of updating the audio, updating the video quality, because at that time, they hadn't been released in theaters since 1985, and digital was becoming a thing at that point. And it's time, right? These things are beloved by generations of fans. And so, yeah, you got to make sure that the quality of them is up to date, especially with home theater just becoming a thing, So we forget what it was like in the mid 90s. But at that point, Star Wars in the expanded universe had already gotten off to a fantastic start, was cranking along, had been for about 5 or 6 years. And so there was a groundswell of interest in Star Wars. So it was the perfect time. The 20th anniversary of the movie's release of the original Star Wars was coming. So yeah, why not do it? And additionally, it helps gauge an interest in whether, this prequel thing, are we going to do this? For sure, absolutely. So yeah, and Lucasfilm being privately financed, I don't know how much of the release of the special editions was going to end up getting thrown into the pot to say, all right, here's some money that we need to kind of get the ball rolling with all of these productions that we've got in mind for the prequel movies. So yeah, there are a lot of reasons why a re-release of Star Wars in theaters and updating the audio and video quality of it absolutely made sense, no question. But it's the messing with the movie that then we start to get into the issue. And, my issue isn't so much with the idea of, oh my gosh, why did he make Greedo shoot first or anything like that? I mean, yes, that's sort of a symptom of a larger idea. And it's the idea that once you've released a creation into the wild, I strongly believe that you should not go back and change it. I mean, you don't have novelists going back and saying, hey, pull all the copies of my novel that are out there because I need to make a few changes. The same thing with comic books, the same thing with television shows. Nobody's pulling their TV shows back and saying, no, I gotta do this over again, and releasing, the special edition of America's Got Talent or the special edition of Modern Family or something like that. It's not happening, right? So why should movies be any different? I mean, most people, as they release movies, they're in the wild and they're not touching them. It's only really in controversial circumstances, like, say, with Blade Runner, for example, where there was a big argument about Final Cut and what Ridley Scott's vision of the movie was versus what the movie studio wanted to do with it, and so on and so forth. So, I mean, maybe there's a fine line there with that sort of thing. But Lucas saying that, the movies were just not what I had in mind, like they weren't at the level that I wanted them to be because the technology wasn't there. Well, on the one hand, okay, yeah, I can kind of understand that feeling, but on the other hand, it was absolutely in his control, and he put the movies out there, so he really should have just let them lie. That is my feeling as a creative in this world, and that's just a philosophical difference I'm going to have with George Lucas on it. And, even Gareth Edwards, who did Rogue One, there's a thing that was done by IO9 for the 20th anniversary of the special edition re-releases. And, I mean, really? 20th anniversary? Yeah, that was last year in 2017. Here's a piece. It says, looking back at George doing the special editions, initially I was like, what are you doing? No, they're brilliant. They're masterpieces. Don't touch them, said Edwards, the self-described Star Wars nut, after the release of Rogue One. And now I feel like, oh, I get it. There are always little things you want to tweak or didn't work out the way you wanted. That's the beauty of being an audience versus being a filmmaker, is you don't bring any of that baggage with you. It just hits you with what it is, unquote. And so I guess I disagree with Gareth Edwards on this one too. I mean, just because you can doesn't mean you should necessarily. And, one of the justifications for doing the special editions and doing all the CGI editions was to bring it in line with what we were going to see with the prequels. And I really don't find that argument to hold water either, because it's actually better from a story perspective in my mind to have Tatooine and Endor and Dagobah and Hoth look as different from the opulence of Coruscant or Naboo in the prequel trilogies, because then you see what life is like on the outside, on the margins, with an empire fully in power, and you get to see how things are developing at the margins, how these frontier places are the seeds for rebellion. And I think it provides a sharp contrast to show the galaxy at the height of its success, if you will, in the Galactic Republic, when we see how it's working in the prequel trilogy, versus when the Empire has been in power for nearly 2 decades, and how it has really made things awful for the galaxy, especially at the margins in places like Tatooine. So yeah, from a story perspective, I don't find that adding the CGI effects into places like Tatooine actually brings things in line with the prequel trilogy. In fact, I think it doesn't. It makes it a little awkward in that way. So there you go. That's my big philosophical difference with Lucas about the special editions. And I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Like, do you have any big philosophical disagreements with how Lucas approached the movies, whether the originals, the special editions, the prequels, what have you? I mean, high level stuff, right? Not, why did Han have to shoot second kind of things. I mean, yes, there is sort of a philosophical thing behind that, but no, I'm looking for big picture stuff from you. So drop me a comment wherever you're checking this out. And so, as usual, over on the audio version of the podcast, I'll be doing Last Jedi Trivia. Check that out at sw7x7.com/iTunes, or wherever you like to listen to podcasts. But for now, it just remains for me to say thank you so much for watching, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.